Let's talk about why all rapture prophecies fail. Now, before we get into it, please like and share this video and subscribe to BP the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. I want to break down, since we've been having a rash of rapture prophecy. I just kind of think it's in the air, like a full moon or something like that. But every generation or every other generation, we have this rash of date setting failed prophecies that Jesus is either going to return or the rapture is going to happen. And to date, all of these prophecies have failed. And of course, the most recent, which was just a little over a month ago, the failed prophecies of September 23rd and 24th. And I could go back and probably find them on YouTube and just, I probably have to scroll down if they haven't taken the videos off. I mean, just dozens of people making these September 23rd, 24th predictions. And right off when I saw September 23rd, 24th, you lost me right there, because it seems that is God confused? Or was he revealing that, okay, I'm going to come on September 23rd, maybe 24th, I don't know yet. So right there, okay, right there told me everything I needed to know that they were going to fail. I never bought into him anyway. And that's not to say, and let's do the disclaimer. Yes, Jesus can come back at any time. Meaning this, the rapture. Now, the second coming, Jesus won't come back because he's already told us when that's going to happen. And I'll get into that later. But as far as the rapture is concerned, yeah, the rapture can happen at any day. But I'm going to even explain, we're going to get into that, how we can, well, we can't discern it, but we can at least understand what's going on. So it always baffles me that so many people think that they have special revelation, that God, despite everyone else, he's going to reveal it to them. And of course, when the prophecies fail, and they always do, they will either do this. They will, one, maybe disappear. Some will apologize, to their credit. But worse, some will they will move the goalposts and make another date. Okay? So, now, why do these prophecies fail? Well, first and foremost, they are solely built upon faulty scriptural interpretation. We could say prophetic interpretation. They just make stuff up. They just read things in the scripture that's not said. And you would think by now we should have learned, but we don't. This is kind of like the equivalent of there's a sucker born every day, I think it is. So I want to break down why these prophecies fail. And at the same time, let's look at the scriptures so that we can be armed, strengthened to say, okay, what to look for. Now, I'm going to bring up some scriptures in just a moment. I'm going to share my screen in just a moment. And then again, I want to share some of these prophecies, failed prophecies, just a tad here before I actually get into. I want to go through and share some scriptures that I think it's important that we understand. Again, and then two, why so many good people? Why so many good people? I've been a Christian for 47 years. And I could tell you that back in my early days, men that I greatly respected, they thought we was not going to get out of the 80s without Jesus coming. Now, they never set dates. They just, this was their opinion. And I think I'm going to say that's acceptable. That if you think you figured out some math, and a lot of times people do that, they figure out math, they do some fancy ciphering of days and all that. But I think where a lot of people go wrong is they start setting dates, and then after they set dates, they start doing stupid things such as selling their cars, their goods, all of the earthly goods, emptying out their bank accounts. Like, why, if you think the rapture has happened, why do you care? Why do you care that your bank account is full? But anyway, and sometimes they give them to the pastor. That's another thing. That should be another warning sign, but it's not. So those are the kind of lunacy things. They quit their jobs, and divest all of their investments. Okay, that's the craziness of it. But I'm gonna, even the people that I would say I respected, that a lot of their conclusions were based upon faulty interpretation methods, reading things into the scriptures that the scriptures didn't say. And that's the problem. So let me share my screen, and let me show you. All right. So this, I'm not going to focus on him, but he seemed to have gotten a lot of attention because he said the Lord told him that September 23rd or 24th. As I said, when I even heard that, I said, okay, your God is confused. Does he not know when he's coming? So which is it, the 23rd or the 24th? And as it turns out, both dates were wrong anyway. And then, of course, I don't follow this guy. I don't, but I think a lot of people did. But he's not the only one. As I said, there were dozens of people who made September 23rd, 24th predictions. So he's not the only one. But some of these clips I'm getting ready to show you here, these are some of the afterwards. Okay, a couple of them are on the very day of the supposed rapture, like September 23rd, and then the others were, oops, it didn't happen. Here we go.
People were selling their cars and others were benefiting from it, as seen in this viral video with nearly 10 million views.
Hey, to the person who sold me their car on September 21st, if this is September 24th and the rapture didn't happen, you're not getting your car back.
Another side of the hype?
I kind of like that one. You know, I looked for people. Well, I didn't really look. But I was open to people. Hey, if you want to divest a lot of your stuff and give them to me, I would have taken them.
Owners worrying about what would happen to their fur babies, as the Bible doesn't make much mention of cats and dogs. While many couldn't contain their excitement come the morning of September 23rd,
today is the day! Let's go! We made it!
it was especially
I wonder where he's at now. He was so excited. He was in rapture. He was in rapture position. I wonder where he's at now.
for true believers when they found out it didn't happen and they still had to go to work. The TikTok account Rapture Clownery Archive has collected many of the disappointed reactions.
To my brothers and sisters who are watching for the rapture right now, Don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. Jesus is still coming.
And as we approach.
So his statement is, duh. The problem is you miscalculated. You bought into a lie.
At the end of the day, it's looking like it's not happening, y'all. I'm not gonna lie, I feel foolish. I feel dumb.
It is.
You should feel dumb and you should feel foolish because these things happen over and over again.
September 23rd, and we're still here. And I'm fine with that.
The dates in question.
What do you mean you're fine with it? Why did you accept it in the first place? And with those last three, I really want to address, okay, here's what not to do. To have this false hope, to have these hopes dashed. Especially if you went a step further and, like you say, and gave away all of your stuff, quit your job. And there are a lot of people who did that. Now, this video here, I'm not going to go into all of it. But the reason why I'm showing you this video is because the lunacy doesn't stop. This video just came out at the time of this taping here. Look at this. Here was a guy. Here's the title of the video, 26 Reasons for Hanukkah 2025 Rapture in 10 Minutes, right? So that's the name of the video. And this is 7 hours ago he posted this. So now here's another prediction. Here's another prediction. Okay? By the way, I did comment on it. Let me kind of show y'all. I don't know if y'all can see that right there. But I commented on that when I found it. That at some point, when will gullible Christians stop swallowing made-up false prophecies? Not one point validates his idiotic claims. Failed September 23, 24 didn't convince you? I want it to be a lot meaner, but, at some point, yes. Come on, why? And again, as you can see, all of these points that he's making, not one of the points validates his claim that the rapture is going to happen on Hanukkah. Now, let me tell you another reason that, which is funny to me, that since he's bringing this up for Hanukkah, the September 23rd was supposed to have been the Feast of Trumpets. Why do people think that Jesus is regulating his prophetic returns according to the Jewish calendar or the Jewish Mosaic law? And especially when it comes to the rapture, when the Jewish population makes up, I can't even tell you what kind of percentage. 1% of the total population of the Church of Jesus Christ. In other words, the church now is overwhelmingly non-Jewish. It is both Jew and Gentiles, with a vast majority being non-Jewish. What we call Messianic Jews, those who believe in Jesus. So now, why do you think Jesus is going to regulate then the Jewishness side when the vast majority, by the way, the vast majority of the people may not even know the significance of these, what you may call festivals and the feasts. And like here, Hanukkah. Okay? All right. So let's go to the scriptures here. Now, what I want to do is I want to showcase two scriptures. There's two scriptures that's going to be kind of the foundation of what I'm going to study. I'm going to share some more, but Matthew 24 and Ephesians 2 are going to be the two foundational scriptures. Now you may say Ephesians 2, wow, is there a prophecy in there? not indirectly, but when we get to it, you'll see. Now, in Matthew 24, I'm going to go back to the ending of chapter 23, in verse 37. He says, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, she who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, yet you were not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate. For I tell you, you will never see me again until you say, He who comes in the name of the Lord is the blessed one. Now, one of the problems that I have with people, I remember I told you about how a lot of people surmised, or even to this day will say, that Israel becoming a nation in 1948 was a major prophetic fulfillment. And thus, they started attaching a lot of prophetic timelines to that. So one was, since Israel became a nation in 1988, then the next faulty misinterpretation. Remember, all of these prophetic failures are based upon faulty methods, interpretations, I'm going to get it right. Faulty interpretations, method of interpretations, okay? Every last one of them. So here's one that Israel actually becoming a nation in 1948 was a prophetic fulfillment. I'll get back to that in a moment. And then secondly, there is this, well, a generation is 40 years. So since Israel became a nation in 1948, and since a generation is 40 years, well, 1988 should have been the rapture date. Well, there was a guy who wrote a book, 88 Reasons Why Jesus was going to come in 1988. And obviously, this fool, after 1988, what does he do? He moves the goalpost and writes another book, 89 Reasons Why Jesus is Coming. See that? Again, so the stupidity is never ending here. If he failed in 1988, why would you buy this guy's book in 1989? Why would you believe him? All right. Let's kind of go back to why do people say, that Israel becoming a nation in 1948 was a fulfillment of prophecy? Well, as we get into Matthew 24, I don't know if we're going to get that far, but I might, since I've kind of opened the door. But they're going to say that the parable. In fact, let me slide down here, and here it is. This is why people say that in 1948, Israel becoming a nation. Okay, watch this. And as we go through these scriptures, let me say this. Pay attention to the details. See, remember I said that every one of the failed prophecies are based upon faulty methods of interpretation. And here's one. Look at this. Verse 32 says, Now learn this parable from the fig tree. As soon as its branches become tender and sprouts leaves, you know that summer is near. In the same way, when you see all these things, recognize that he is near at the door. I assure you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. And so this is known as the fig tree. So somewhere, somebody inserted Israel was the fig tree. And then they said that if you now see Israel become a nation again, that generation will not pass until Jesus comes. Will not pass without Jesus coming. But as we can see, it said no such thing. Jesus said, learn the parable of the fig tree. He never said the fig tree was Israel or represents Israel becoming a nation again. He just didn't say that. But people have read that into this statement here. Faulty methods. Now let's go back and now let's read this again. Verse 37, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, she who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together, the hen who gathers her chicks under her wings, yet you were not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate. For I tell you, you will never see me again until you say, he who comes in the name of the Lord is the blessed one. So this would be a pretty significant sign for Israel if you want to attach some interpretation, some fulfillment. So in 1948, did this happen? Did they say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord? All right, let's continue to read now. 24 verse 1 says, as Jesus left and was going out of the temple complex, his disciples came up and called his attention to the temple buildings. And then he replied, don't you see all these things? I assure you, not one stone will be left here on another that would not be thrown down. Now, remember what I told you? Let's pay attention to the details. So let's see what Jesus said, and let's see what Jesus is not saying. Now, watch this. They raved over the beautiful temple, and he said, ha, there's coming a day when all of this is going to be rubbish. Now, we know this came to pass in AD 70, an important date. Verse 3. While he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, his disciples approached him privately and said, tell us, when will these things happen? And what is the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? Let's kind of go back and look at what he asked. So there was 3 questions that's asked here. Tell us, when will these things happen, or what things? He just told them that the destruction of the temple. So that's the first question. When will these things happen? And then he asked, and what is the sign of your coming? Right? And then he says, and of the end of the age. So watch that, the end of the age. So we need to define what is the end of the age means so that you will know. So Jesus is going to tell us. Well, now let's go on. So there's 3 questions that he's answering in this discourse. So verse 4 says, then Jesus replied to them, watch out that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Messiah, and they will deceive many. You're going to hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you're not alarmed, because these things must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise up against nations, and kingdoms against kingdoms. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these events are the beginning of birth pains. Now, I'm just going to go back, because he made a very in verse 6, he made an interesting statement. You're going to hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you're not alarmed, because these things must take place, but the end is not yet. Remember, they asked the question, when is the end of the age? Well, not when you hear about wars and rumors. Verse 9, then they will hand you over for persecution, they will kill you, and you will be hated by all nations because of my name. So now he's talking to his disciples, right? Then many will take offense, betray one another, and hate one another. Many false prophets will arise up and deceive many, because lawlessness will multiply. The love of many will grow cold, but he who endures to the end, there's that term again, the end will be delivered. This good news of the kingdom will be proclaimed in all the world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. All right, so let's put some things together prophetically. I want to show, I know what, I'm going to come back to this, but I want to go to Daniel chapter 2. Okay? Daniel chapter 2. Now again, I'm putting these together so you can understand this. Because remember, I think part of the problem again is faulty methods of interpretation. People string scriptures together and they're just kind of plucking them and not reading the context, not paying attention to the details. Okay. So in this dream, here is Daniel. This is when he is first captured and deported. He's one of the first people that are deported from the 70-year exile. During this time, these early years, God gives Nebuchadnezzar a dream. And the dream, he didn't know what a dream was. But you know how sometimes you may not know or be able to articulate, but you know it when you hear it. You know it when you see it. But none of his magicians could interpret. So basically the king said, tell you what, tell me the dream, then I know you can interpret it. And they was like, oh, king, come on, no one can do that. He says, all right, you're trying to gain the time. He says, if you don't tell me, I'm going to kill all of you all. The king, I said, okay, he issued the decree, kill all of these magicians. They came to Daniel, and Daniel was like, I tell you what, just give me some time. I'm going to go see God. He went and saw God, and he came back and he said, hey, you know what? God has given me an interpretation. They rushed Daniel in before the king. And then the king, let's see here. I'm going to start reading at verse 31. Because this is kind of, this dream is also paramount to understanding the entire book of Daniel, because the prophecies that are in chapters 7 through 12 are further explanation of what we're getting ready to read here. So he says, my king, as you were watching, a colossal statue appeared. The statue, tall and dazzling, was standing in front of you, and its appearance was terrifying. The head of the statue was pure gold, its chest and its arms were silver, its stomach and thighs were bronze, and its legs were iron. Its feet were partly iron and partly fired clay. As you were watching, a stone broke off without a hand touching it, struck the statue on its feet of iron and fired clay. That on the feet is very important. I'll get back to that later. On its feet and fired clay and crushed them. Then the iron, the fired clay, the bronze, and the silver and the gold were shattered and became like chaff from the summer threshing floor. The wind carried them away. Not a trace of them could be found. But the stone that struck the statue became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. This is the dream. Now we will tell the king the interpretation. Okay? So you see this human form. This human form. Let me see if I can find it right quick. Let me see if I can find it right quick. Because I want you to see this. This is kind of great here, but here we go. All right, so this is what we're reading right here. Okay, this human form. This is an artist's rendition, so let's acknowledge that. This is, I don't know how, this is an artist's rendition. But notice, head of gold, chest of arms of silver, belly of thighs and bronze, legs of iron, feet of clay. And then notice he said the rock you see there crushes this image. By the way, he strikes the image on the feet. I'm gonna get that's extremely important. All right. So now this is the interpretation. This is the interpretation that Daniel saw. Verse 37, Your Majesty, you are the King of Kings, and the God of heaven has given you sovereignty, power, strength, and glory. Notice God is the one who's given this. The king at this time thought he was the great one. He says, wherever people live, or wild animals, or birds of the air, he has handed them over to you and made you ruler over them all. Keep that in mind. You are the head of gold. After you, there will arise another kingdom, inferior to yours, then another. A third kingdom of bronze, which will rule the whole earth. A fourth kingdom will be as strong as iron. As for iron, crushes and shatters everything. And like iron that smashes, it will crush and smash all the others. You saw the feet and the toes, partly of fired clay and partly of iron. It will be a divided kingdom, though some of its strength of iron will be in it. You saw the iron mixed with clay, and that the toes and the feet were partly iron and partly fired clay. Part of the kingdom will be strong, and part will be brittle. And you saw the iron mixed with clay. The peoples will mix with one another, but will not hold together, just as iron does not mix with the fired clay. Now get this. In the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed. And his kingdom will not be left to another people, and it will crush all these kingdoms and bring them to an end, but will itself endure. You saw a stone break off from a mountain without a hand touching it, and it crushed the iron, the bronze, the fired clay, the silver, and the gold. The great God has told the king what will happen in the future. The dream is true, and its interpretation certain. So here is a prophetic picture from Nebuchadnezzar's day right up until the second coming of Jesus. Notice in verse 44, in the days of those kings, what is that? The toes, the feet. In the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be told. So here's the thing that is explicitly told, simple, the second coming of Jesus Christ. And we told what's going to happen when Jesus comes. It's going to set up his kingdom that will never end. Now, what needs to be understood is throughout Scripture, we have different details to understand this. So what we're looking at here that Daniel told, and this is important, what Daniel told was that this human form, which represents 5 world dominating kingdoms from Nebuchadnezzar's day until the actual second coming of Jesus. The rock comes, and notice it strikes this image, this human form, man's kingdom. Now, this is important, man's kingdom at its feet. That's the timing. That when he strikes at the feet, that's the timing of those kings. So he's not striking the chest. That would have been the Mede and Persian kingdom. But he strikes at the feet, this last world dominating kingdom, which we later will know as the beast, the man of sin, that last kingdom. Now, the reason why this is important to understand this, because remember when Jesus said that all these things will not happen, but yet the end is not yet. Remember the question that the disciples asked him, when is the end of the age? Well, now, what is the age that he is referring to? The time of man. These kingdoms, which represents a human form, human government, but also man's time that God in his sovereignty has allotted man on his earth, and then he will come and destroy the human form, the human governments. He will come and destroy them. So now here's information that we have to understand when Jesus says the end of the age, this is what he was talking about. So when is man time coming? Well, when is man time is up? When is the end of the age? When Jesus comes. But there's more details to that. I'm going to get into this in part 2. I'm going to get into this in part 2. And I'm going to break this down. I'm going to take my time. And I was going to rush through it. But again, I'm going to break this down so that we can understand. So again, what's the purpose? Let's stop falling for these fake prophecies that always fail. Why? Because they're built upon a faulty method of interpretation. All right, guys, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP The Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought, a comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. And I will see you in part 2 of why all prophecies,